The night I stepped into my parents' dining room, I thought it was just another Sunday dinner. But the air felt too heavy, too rehearsed. My mother's smile was tight. My father's handshake lingered as if he was about to close a deal, and my sister Melissa was practically glowing with smug anticipation. Then my eyes caught it, a thick leather folder resting beside my father's plate. In that instant, I realized this wasn't dinner at all. It was a trap, and the prize they were after was everything I had built with my own two hands. I pulled out the chair across from Melissa, trying to convince myself this was nothing more than another Carter family dinner. The table was dressed to perfection, the kind of detail my mother reserved for holidays and carefully staged photographs. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier, her best china gleamed, and a centerpiece of lilies filled the air with an almost sickly sweetness. My father carved the roast with sharp, deliberate motions, the knife glinting each time it sliced through the meat. It all felt too polished, too orchestrated, as though I had wandered into a play where everyone but me knew the script. Melissa leaned forward, her smile too wide, her eyes fixed on me with a gleam that made my stomach tighten. I knew that look. It was the same expression she wore as a child when she had hidden a tack on my chair or rigged the shower head to spray cold water. Mischief, entitlement, triumph before the victory was even earned. My father's napkin shifted, revealing more of the leather folder. The sight of it anchored the dread rising in my chest. This was not dinner. This was strategy. "How's the studio, Rachel?" my mother asked, her voice pitched too high, as if enthusiasm could cover the tension lacing the room. "Still working those long nights?" She placed a generous spoonful of mashed potatoes on my plate, her hand lingering just a second too long, the gesture oddly insistent. "It's good," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We're finishing a major project this week. Busy, but rewarding." I glanced toward the folder again, watching my father's eyes follow mine. His jaw shifted, the familiar tick of a man preparing to negotiate. Melissa gave a soft, almost mocking laugh. "Busy? Sure. But you can't keep running that whole firm alone forever. You need help? Rachel." Real help. Her words dripped with false concern, but her tone betrayed her excitement. She was not offering, she was claiming. My father cleared his throat, setting his fork down with a deliberate clink that echoed louder than it should have. "Your mother and I have been thinking about the future of your business. Carter and Company needs to stay in the family." His hand brushed the folder, almost protectively, as though it contained a treasure map. I froze mid-bite, the roast beef turning to ash on my tongue. My mother jumped in quickly, her voice smooth, rehearsed. "Family businesses thrive when everyone contributes, dear. We've always believed in keeping things close." Melissa straightened in her chair, practically glowing under the spotlight they handed her. "I've put together a plan," as she said, tapping her nails against the folder. "I'll step in as your operations manager. That way, you can focus on designing while I handle the boring details. It's a win-win. And all I'd need is a 30% share of profits. Very reasonable, considering the growth I'll bring." Her words hit me like a punch. 30%. A quarter of everything I had bled for. The sleepless nights drafting blueprints at my kitchen table. The years of juggling 3 jobs to afford rent while sending money home. The contracts negotiated, the clients convinced, the endless risk I carried alone. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of silence settle across the table. For a moment, the clinking of silverware ceased, the lily's perfume felt suffocating, and all I could hear was the rapid, pounding beat of my own heart. "This isn't a family business," I said finally, my voice calm but sharper than I intended. "I built it. With our support, my father countered smoothly, sliding the folder closer to me. And now it's time to think about the future. Melissa has the energy, the charm. Together, you'll make Carter and Company unstoppable. Melissa's grin widened. I can start next week. I already have ideas for rebranding the office. Imagine how much more professional it'll look with my touch. I forced my hand to stay steady as I lifted my glass of water. My reflection shimmered on the surface, fractured and unsettled. When I set it back down, I realized my hands were trembling. My family was not here to celebrate me. They were here to claim me. Melissa reached for the leather folder with the theatrical grace of someone unveiling a long-awaited gift. She placed it in front of me, her manicured fingers resting on the edge as if she owned it already. I've been working on this for months, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. A business plan for Carter and Company's next chapter. I didn't touch it. I didn't even blink. Instead, I watched my father lean back, his arms crossed, the posture of a man who believed the deal was already sealed. My mother folded her hands neatly on the table, her eyes shining with that strange mix of guilt and triumph that only she could manage. Melissa slid the folder closer, her smile dazzling in the way she used to win over teachers, coaches, and anyone too polite to look beneath the surface. I'll handle operations. Payroll, contracts, client relations. All the tedious tasks that drain your energy. You'll finally be free to focus on design. Rachel, the part you're actually good at. She paused for effect, as if she were about to deliver the benevolent punchline. And in exchange, I'll take 30% of profits. It's fair. Really? It's generous, considering the growth I'll bring. Her words hit me harder the second time. She wasn't just asking for a role. She was demanding a cut of everything I had sacrificed to build. Melissa has the charisma this business needs, my father added, his voice steady, rehearsed. You're talented. Rachel, no one doubts that. But talent isn't enough in the long run. It takes people skills, connections, a manager who can charm investors and keep clients happy. The knife in his words was deliberate. I remembered too clearly the moments when my accomplishments were downplayed, when Melissa's charm was treated as the family's greatest asset. The contrast had always been there. I was the workhorse. She was the show pony. I let my gaze drop to the folder. The golden letters embossed on the cover spelled out, "Proposal for expansion," as though it were already official. For a brief second, I imagined what might be inside, graphs Melissa hadn't created, buzzwords she barely understood, vague promises packaged as strategy. I didn't need to open it to know the contents were hollow. You think this is reasonable? I asked, my voice low but steady. Completely, Melissa replied without hesitation. You've been drowning yourself in details. It's not sustainable. With me in charge of operations, clients will finally see Carter and Company as a polished brand, not a scrappy startup. Don't you want to look like you belong with the big firms? The question wasn't innocent. It was a knife wrapped in ribbon. She wanted me to believe I was inadequate, that my firm was incomplete without her. My mother leaned forward, her tone soft, coaxing. Honey, we just want to help. Families share. That's what keeps them strong. Think of it as a partnership, a new era for Carter and Company. I studied each of them in silence. My father's jaw, tight with expectation. My mother's eyes, glistening with performative concern. Melissa, sitting straighter than ever, radiating victory before the battle had even been fought. I already have a project manager, I said evenly. And the firm is profitable. We're not drowning. Melissa let out a laugh, high-pitched and dismissive. Profitable, maybe. but small. If you let me step in, we'll scale fast. I've already drafted a rebranding campaign. New logo, new social media strategy, client appreciation events. I know how to make things shine. Her voice carried the same tone she used in college, when she explained how skipping classes wasn't a problem because she had friends who would share notes. It was the voice of someone who lived on shortcuts, who relied on charm as a substitute for substance. I reached for my water again, buying time, steadying the storm rising inside me. The glass was cool in my hand, grounding me. When I set it down, Melissa was still smiling, waiting for my surrender. "This isn't a proposal," I said quietly. "It's an ambush." My father's brow furrowed. "Ambush, Rachel? Don't be dramatic. We're offering you support. We're protecting your future." Support. The word tasted bitter. Where had their support been when I was pulling all-nighters to finish my degree? Where had it been when rent threatened to crush me and I ate canned soup for weeks straight? The only consistent support had been from myself. Melissa tapped the folder again, her patience thinning. "You're overthinking this. It's simple. Sign tonight, and we start fresh tomorrow. Carter and Company, truly a family business. Imagine how proud people will be when they hear we're all in this together." Her words echoed in the dining room like a verdict, each syllable hammering against my ribs. I felt the weight of my father's authority, my mother's manipulation, Melissa's entitlement pressing down on me from all sides. They weren't asking. They were circling. They had built this moment carefully, convinced that guilt and pressure would be enough to break me. But as I stared at the folder, one thought rose above the noise. I had survived worse storms than this. The weight of Melissa's demand pressed against me, but it wasn't just her words that stung. It was the flood of memories her arrogance unleashed, memories that reminded me exactly what it had cost to build Carter and Company. I saw myself at 21, hustling through the aisles of a grocery store at midnight, stacking shelves to cover rent, my hands raw from cold cardboard. During the day, I sat in lectures about sustainable architecture, barely able to keep my eyes open after back-to-back shifts. While my classmates debated design theory in coffee shops, I was sprinting between 3 part-time jobs, my sketchbook shoved into a bag already fraying at the seams. My paychecks vanished instantly. Tuition, textbooks, the smallest apartment I could afford in the Hawthorne district, a place so cramped the shower doubled as storage. Yet even then, I sent money home when my parents claimed Melissa needed extra for essentials. Essentials that always turned out to be dresses for formals, or last-minute trips with friends. I remembered graduation day. I stood in line, cap balanced on my head, diploma case waiting to be filled. The auditorium buzzed with proud families waving flowers, snapping photos. My heart pounded as I scanned the rows for my parents. I spotted them slipping in late, distracted, already fussing with Melissa's hair. When the ceremony ended, they ushered me into a quick hug, then rushed off because Melissa had a sorority event that evening. The photos I took that day weren't of me in my cap and gown. They were of Melissa, smiling in my regalia while Dad snapped pictures like she was the one who had earned it. That moment never left me. It branded itself into my skin. Every sleepless night that followed carried the echo of that dismissal, the silent message, your achievements don't matter, hers do. Years later, when I secured my first real client, I should have celebrated. Instead, I spent the night drafting blueprints in a freezing studio, heat turned off to save money, my breath visible as I bent over the desk. Meanwhile, Melissa called me in tears because she had lost another job after just 3 months. Without hesitation, I wired her money for rent. I told myself it was what family did. I convinced myself she would repay me when she got back on her feet. The debt piled up, unspoken but heavy. I saw myself eating ramen noodles 5 nights in a row, stirring the broth with the same pen I used to sketch. I saw the rejection letters from banks, the loan officers who smiled politely as they explained that without collateral, Carter and Company would never exist. My parents refused to co-sign, telling me it was too risky, and even as they signed a check for Melissa's brand new SUV because she needed reliable transportation. And I rode buses to meetings while she posted photos from the leather seats of her car, the caption dripping with hashtags about independence. There was the summer she offered to help at my studio. She charmed clients in the lobby, promised discounts she had no authority to give, and left invoices half completed. By August, I was facing angry phone calls from customers who had been double billed or left waiting hours. I stayed in the office until 2 a.m. for weeks, sifting through the chaos she left behind, apologizing to each client personally. Melissa brushed it off with a laugh. It was boring paperwork anyway. You should thank me for trying. I thought of the months I lived without furniture, my mattress on the floor, my desk scavenged from the curb. I thought of the nights I walked home in the rain because I couldn't afford gas. I thought of the moment when I signed the lease for our first official studio space, a moment that should have been monumental. My parents came by for 10 minutes, offered polite smiles, then left early to attend one of Melissa's networking parties. And now here we were, years later, my studio thriving, clients lining up, a staff who trusted me, and still they sat across from me at this table acting as if I owed them a piece of it. Acting as if Melissa's charm outweighed my sacrifice, as if my years of silent struggle were nothing more than a warm-up for her entitlement. The lilies on the table blurred before my eyes, the weight of those memories nearly choking me. My pulse steadied with a single, undeniable truth. Every brick of Carter and Company was laid with my sweat, my hunger, my sleepless nights. They hadn't been there. They hadn't lifted a finger. But now they wanted to swoop in, take a quarter of my life's work, and call it family. I looked at the folder again, my reflection faint in its glossy surface. For them, it was just paper, a deal waiting for my signature. For me, it was the line between past and present, between being invisible and finally, irrevocably seen. The folder sat between us like a loaded weapon, the weight of their expectations pressing in from every side. Melissa tapped her manicured nails against the cover, impatient now, as if my hesitation was nothing more than theatrics. My father leaned forward, his voice calm but firm, the way he used to lecture me about curfews. Rachel, you need to be realistic. Melissa can take Carter and Company to the next level. She has the people skills you lack. It's time you stopped being stubborn. I let the silence stretch, my eyes locked on that folder. Every nerve in my body screamed to push back, to walk out, to refuse. But instead, I drew a slow, steady breath and reached down for my leather portfolio resting by my chair. The movement was deliberate, careful, like drawing a sword from its sheath. My family's smug expressions faltered the moment the clasp clicked open. "What is that?" my mother asked, her voice pitched high, nervous for the first time that evening. "My future," I replied evenly. I pulled out a set of documents, neatly organized and bound. The logo of Northwest Architecture Group gleamed at the top of the first page. My father's eyes narrowed as I slid it across the table. 3 weeks ago, and I said, I signed a partnership agreement with Northwest Architecture. They'll be handling administrative oversight and expansion strategy moving forward. Which means, I tapped the highlighted clause, no family members can be employed in management roles without unanimous board approval. And the board doesn't include you. And for the first time all night, Melissa's smile cracked. She grabbed the document, scanning the lines with wide eyes. You can't just make decisions like this without us. she snapped. I can, I said. And I did. I reached for another folder, this one thicker, heavier. And just in case you've forgotten, let's revisit your last attempt at helping. I opened it to reveal color-coded spreadsheets, client complaints, billing errors, unauthorized discounts. Each entry was meticulously dated, each mistake tied directly to Melissa's brief stint in my office. Her face flushed red. Those were minor errors. 15 double-booked meetings, 24 unauthorized discounts, 30 billing mistakes that nearly triggered an audit. I slid the papers closer to her. Does that sound minor to you? My mother reached out, her hand trembling slightly. Rachel, everyone makes mistakes. These weren't mistakes. I cut in, my voice sharper now. They were reckless choices made by someone who thought the rules didn't apply to her. Melissa pushed back in her chair, her bravado slipping. You didn't have to keep track of all that, she muttered. Yes, I did. Because every one of your errors cost me time, money, and credibility with my clients. And while I was working overtime to clean up your mess, you were posting photos of rooftop parties, pretending you were already a success. I pulled out the final set of receipts, screenshots of Melissa's Instagram stories, where she flaunted projects she had never touched. Captions boasted of her design expertise, while my staff stayed late fixing the chaos she left behind. The silence was suffocating. My father's confident expression had soured into something harder, his jaw clenched tight. My mother's eyes darted nervously between us, her facade of calm slipping. Melissa stared at the documents as if they were poison. This is why I don't need your help, and I said, my voice steady, measured. I built Carter and Company without you. I survived the sleepless nights, the loans, the rejections, the endless grind. And now that it's thriving, you think you can stroll in and claim ownership? But this, I gestured at the evidence spread across the table, is the reality. Your involvement doesn't strengthen my company. It threatens it. I gathered the papers slowly, sliding them back into my portfolio with deliberate precision. The act was intentional, a show of control, of boundaries they couldn't cross. When I snapped the clasp shut, the sound echoed through the dining room like a gavel striking wood. Melissa's voice cracked as she tried to recover. You're exaggerating. We just want to be part of your success. No, I said simply. You want to take credit for it? For a long moment, no one moved. The chandelier hummed softly above us, the lilies scent sharp and suffocating. My father's authority, my mother's guilt, Melissa's entitlement, all of it hung in the air, trembling under the weight of the truth laid bare. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one shrinking under that weight. I was the one holding it. I kept my portfolio on the table, the leather cool beneath my fingertips. My family waited for me to falter, to retreat, but instead I opened the clasp again and pulled out the thickest file I had prepared. If they wanted receipts, I would give them receipts. This, I said, laying out the first document, is the partnership contract with Northwest Architecture Group. It's binding, it's legal, and it specifically prohibits family members from taking management roles without unanimous board approval. That board consists of me and 2 senior partners who have seen what Melissa is capable of. So even if I wanted to hire her, it's no longer my decision to make. My father reached for the contract, his hands stiff. You went behind our backs. No, I interrupted, my voice steady. I did my job. I protected my company. Before he could respond, I slid another folder across the table. It landed in front of my mother with a heavy thud. This is a financial breakdown from my accountant. Over the last 4 years, I have provided more than $60,000 worth of free services to this family. Home remodels, kitchen redesigns, consultations you never paid for. That's the market value, not even including the late nights and weekends. I spent working on your personal projects while putting my clients second. My mother's mouth opened, then closed again. She pressed her fingers to her lips, unable to find a defense. I didn't give her time. Dad, that custom office you brag about to your golf buddies? Free. Mom, the kitchen you host your charity luncheons in? Free. Melissa, the loft apartment you show off on Instagram? Designed and furnished by me? Free. I gave you all of it while I slept on a mattress on the floor, eating instant noodles to cover payroll. Melissa rolled her eyes, trying to recover her bravado. You're acting like you were some kind of martyr. Families share. You wanted to help us. No, I said firmly. I wanted to believe we were a family. That if I sacrificed for you, you would be there when I needed you. But you weren't, not once. I reached for the next stack of papers. Color-coded spreadsheets, printouts, screenshots. These are client complaints tied directly to Melissa's time in the office. 15 missed appointments. 23 unauthorized discounts. 31 billing errors that nearly triggered an audit. Each one documented, each one corrected by my staff while Melissa posted party photos online. As I turned to her, my voice cutting through the silence. Do you know what it felt like to watch my credibility evaporate because of your carelessness? To call client after client, apologizing for mistakes I didn't make? To wonder if the company I had fought for would collapse because my own family treated it like a playground? Melissa's face burned crimson. You didn't have to keep a record of everything. Yes, I did, I replied, because I knew this day would come. The last envelope was the heaviest. I laid it in the center of the table, unopened. And just in case you think this is about numbers, this is a record of every transfer I made to Melissa during the years she couldn't hold a job. $16,450. Rent payments, credit card bills, even groceries, all while I was scraping by. The air in the dining room thickened. My father's face hardened. My mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Melissa's nails dug into the folder she had been so eager to present. This is not support, I said, my voice low but firm. This is exploitation. You drained me, dismissed me, and now you think you can claim my success as your own. But here's the truth. Every late night, every dollar, every sacrifice is written down, documented. And the story these receipts tell is not one of family. It's one of betrayal. I gathered the papers again, aligning them neatly before sliding them back into my portfolio. The methodical motion calmed me, reminded me of every blueprint I had drawn with the same precision. When the clasp snapped shut, it sounded final, like a verdict. Melissa tried once more, her voice thin. You don't have to be so cold. Rachel, we're just asking to be part of it. I met her gaze without flinching. You already were part of it. You just never gave anything back. The silence that followed was deeper than before. It was the silence of a case closed, of evidence too damning to deny. For the first time in my life, I saw doubt flicker in my father's eyes, guilt crease my mother's face, and fear crack Melissa's confidence. And for the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking in that silence. I was the one who owned it. The table was buried in silence, but only for a moment. Then my mother drew in a shaky breath and clasped her hands together like she was praying. Her voice softened, sugar over steel. Rachel, darling, don't do this. We're not enemies. We're family. Families make sacrifices for one another. All we want is to help. It was a familiar tactic, one I'd seen 1,000 times. When logic failed, my mother always reached for guilt. She leaned closer, her eyes wide and glassy. I carried you for 9 months. I was there when you took your first steps. And now you're sitting here, treating us like strangers. I almost laughed at the performance. She could summon tears at will, the same way she used to during arguments with Dad when she wanted him to cave. But this time, I wasn't the child desperate for her approval. My father picked up where she left off, his voice lower, meant to sound reasonable. Rachel, think about your future. This partnership you signed might look solid now, but companies come and go. Melissa's involvement would give you stability. Family never walks away. I looked at him squarely. Did you walk into my bank appointments when they turned me down? Did you walk with me when I pulled all-nighters drafting plans in that freezing studio? Or did you walk away then too? He stiffened, his mouth opening and closing, searching for words. Melissa jumped in, her tone shifting from sharp to plaintive, the chameleon act she had perfected over the years. I just wanted to be part of your world. You've always been the smart one, the one who made us proud. I'm just asking for a chance to stand beside you. Her voice cracked at just the right moment, but I caught the flicker of her smirk before she bowed her head. She was playing to the room, rehearsing the victim role she had used since childhood. I let her words hang in the air, then answered quietly. A chance? Melissa, I gave you chances. I gave you a desk in my office, clients you didn't earn, projects you couldn't handle. And every single time, you left chaos behind. This isn't about chances. This is about boundaries. The word landed like a stone dropped in water, rippling across the table. My mother recoiled slightly, as if the concept itself offended her. Boundaries? Rachel, you can't put walls between us. We're your parents. We've done everything for you. And the laugh that escaped me was sharp and humorless. Everything? You mean the time you showed up late to my graduation? Or when you posed Melissa in my gown because the spotlight belonged to her? Or when I begged you to co-sign a loan and you told me it was too risky, only to buy her a new car a week later? My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. My father's jaw tightened. Melissa looked away, her mask slipping. I leaned forward, my tone calm but firm. I'm not putting business before family. I'm putting boundaries before exploitation. The room froze. The chandelier hummed overhead, the lily's perfume cloying in the thick silence. The line was out now, sharp and undeniable. Melissa tried again, her voice trembling this time, less practiced, more desperate. Why are you being so cruel? We're just asking for a place at the table. You already have a place, I said, my voice low. It's right there, across from me, as my sister. But you don't get to sit in my office and claim a quarter of what you never earned. The tears finally fell from my mother's eyes, and she dabbed them with her napkin. I never thought success would make you so cold. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood. My voice was steady, even gentle, but the words carried more weight than any shout. Success didn't make me cold. It made me visible. And that's what you can't stand? I thought the dinner confrontation would be enough to end their schemes, but I underestimated them. When direct control failed, my family reached for a different weapon, public image. The very next week, I saw it. My mother's Facebook page displayed a photo of her standing in front of Carter and Company's studio, smiling as though she were the founder. The caption read, "So proud of our family business." Rachel continues the Carter legacy with such talent and grace. My phone buzzed with notifications almost instantly. Clients forwarded the post with confused questions. Colleagues asked, since when Carter and Company had become a family firm. I clenched my jaw, reading those words again and again. Family business. Legacy. None of it was true, and yet to the outside world it painted a picture of shared ownership that did not exist. 2 days later, one of my partners from Northwest Architecture called. Rachel, I just got an email from your father. He wants to discuss potential collaboration opportunities. He referred to himself as co-owner of Carter and Company. My hand tightened around the phone. I could almost hear the smirk on my father's face as he typed those words. He was using my achievements to posture, to leverage connections he had not earned. The betrayal stung differently this time. It was no longer contained within the walls of our dining room. It was leaking into my professional life, into the reputation I had spent years building. Their lies were spreading, twisting the narrative, making it look as if Carter and Company was a family empire rather than my creation. I sat at my desk late into the night, staring at the glow of my laptop. The anger simmered, but beneath it was clarity. If they wanted to play this game in public, I would respond in public too. But I would not do it with angry posts or desperate explanations. I would do it with proof and with boundaries so sharp they could not be mistaken. The next morning, I drafted a formal letter addressed to my parents and to Melissa. It was measured, precise, and unflinching. I stated clearly that Carter and Company was privately owned, that all management decisions were under my authority and the authority of my board, and that any attempts to misrepresent the company as a family business would be considered defamation. I copied my attorney, my accountant, and my partners. When I hit send, I felt something inside me settle. The line had been drawn in black and white. But I did not stop there. That same week, I announced the launch of the Carter & Co. Scholarship Fund, a program dedicated to supporting architecture students from underprivileged backgrounds. It was something I had dreamed about for years, a way to turn my own struggles into opportunities for others. My staff celebrated with me, clapping and cheering as we signed the first checks. Clients praised the initiative, local press covered the story, and suddenly the narrative was no longer about family claims. It was about community impact. Melissa, of course, could not let it go. She showed up uninvited at the studio one afternoon, holding a folder labeled Marketing Strategy. She swept past the receptionist, perfume filling the air, as if she still belonged there. Rachel, we need to talk, she declared, slamming the folder onto my desk. I have ideas that will take your scholarship fund viral. Corporate sponsorships, influencer partnerships, gala events. All I need is an official role to make it happen. I did not even look at the folder. Melissa, you were told not to come here. Her smile faltered. You can't keep shutting me out. People expect us to work together. You heard what Mom posted. The community thinks Carter and Company is a family brand. You should use that. The audacity almost made me laugh. You mean use the lie she told? No. I do not build on lies. Not in business, not in life. She crossed her arms, her tone sharp now. You will regret this. People love a good family story. You are throwing away goodwill. I stood, meeting her glare head on. No, Melissa. I am protecting what I built. If goodwill comes at the cost of truth, it is not worth having. She gathered her folder, muttering under her breath, and stormed out. My staff watched quietly from their desks, their respect for me etched in their eyes. They had seen the chaos she brought before, and now they saw me drawing the line with finality. That evening, I locked the office and walked into the cool Portland air. The city lights glimmered, the hum of traffic steady, grounding. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who worked 3 jobs and still wired money to her sister, believing that family loyalty would someday be reciprocated. That girl had been invisible. Tonight, standing under the streetlights with my letter sent and my boundaries set, I was not invisible anymore. The message came 2 weeks later, written in my father's clipped, businesslike tone. He suggested a meeting, not at their house this time, but on neutral ground. He called it an opportunity to clear the air and rebuild trust. My mother added her own plea in a separate note, written in her flowing cursive, filled with phrases like misunderstandings and healing wounds. And Melissa, ever the actress, sent a short text, just us, like sisters again. I knew better than to believe the performance, but I agreed to meet. Not because I trusted them, but because I needed closure. I chose the Greenhouse Cafe, a quiet place on the east side with soft music and large windows. It had enough background noise for privacy, but enough light to prevent theatrics. I arrived 20 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, and set my leather portfolio on the table in front of me. Inside were the contracts, the financial records, and the letters I had kept. Evidence, not malice. Proof, not anger. When they arrived, they walked in as a unit. My father in a pressed blazer, my mother adjusting her pearl necklace, Melissa trailing just close enough to look supported but far enough to appear independent. Their expressions shifted when they saw me waiting with the portfolio laid out like a shield. My mother reached to hug me, but I stayed seated, forcing her to awkwardly pat my shoulder before taking her chair. My father leaned forward, folding his hands on the table as if he were opening a negotiation. Rachel, family matters should not be aired in public. We are here to resolve this privately. This is not just a family matter, I said, tapping the edge of my portfolio. This concerns my business, and that is why it is on the table today. Melissa slid into her seat, her perfume overwhelming the scent of coffee. She produced a sleek tablet from her bag, screen already glowing. I know I came on too strong before, so I revised my proposal. Not management this time. A consulting arrangement. 3 days a week, focused on social media, corporate clients, brand image. It will make us look modern, approachable. I let her finish, then sipped my coffee slowly. Before we discuss proposals, you should know something. At the Hendersons' anniversary party last weekend, they congratulated me on the Carter family business. They said they heard you all had joined the firm. They seemed surprised when I told them it was not true. My father stiffened, his jaw tightening. My mother's smile froze. Melissa's eyes flicked toward the portfolio, unease creeping into her expression. I have copies, and I continued, sliding a set of printed screenshots across the table. Social media posts, emails, messages, claims that Carter and Company is a family business, claims that you are partners, even attempts to contact my colleagues directly. This ends now. My mother reached for the papers, her hands trembling slightly. Rachel, that was just pride. Parents brag. We never meant harm. Then why, I asked, did Dr. Reynolds receive an email from Dad about partnership opportunities? Why did my accountant report that you demanded access to financial records? The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Melissa tried to salvage the moment. You are blowing this out of proportion. We just want to help. You should be grateful. Families share. I leaned forward, my voice calm but unshakable. Families respect boundaries. You are not partners. You are not owners. You are not entitled to what I built. Melissa's mask cracked, anger slipping through. You get everything. Rachel, The recognition, the clients, the praise. What about me? I am stuck in a cubicle while you play the hero. The words hung heavy, the truth of her resentment laid bare at last. I looked at her without flinching. You had their attention. I built my worth. That is the difference. For a long moment, no one spoke. My father's eyes burned with frustration. My mother dabbed at tears that looked more like performance than pain, and Melissa's hands clenched around her tablet. I closed my portfolio with a decisive snap, stood, and left the exact change for my coffee on the table. Behind me, I heard whispers, the scrape of chairs, the beginning of another round of manipulation. But I did not turn back. For the first time in my life, I walked away without checking to see if they approved. The cool Portland air hit my face as I stepped out of the cafe, the sound of traffic rushing past mixing with the faint hum of voices inside. For a moment, I stood still on the sidewalk, the portfolio heavy under my arm, my heart pounding in the quiet rhythm of release. Behind me, my family's whispers swirled like smoke, but I kept walking. Each step felt lighter, as though I was leaving years of invisible chains inside that cafe. I walked until the noise faded, until the weight in my chest loosened. For the first time in years, I was not bracing myself for their approval or their disappointment. I was not rehearsing explanations or crafting apologies. I was simply moving forward, free from the endless cycle of manipulation and guilt. The memories tried to claw their way back, as they always did. My father's dismissive words at graduation, my mother's carefully staged tears, Melissa wearing my cap and gown while I stood on the sidelines. For years, those moments defined me, carved deep into my identity like scars. Tonight, they felt different. They were still there, but they no longer controlled me. They were the past, not the present. When I reached my apartment, I set the portfolio on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water. The silence of the room was steady, grounding, not the suffocating silence of the Carter dining room. I took a slow sip, staring at the city lights flickering through my window. The thought rose unbidden but clear they had lost their power. The next morning, I woke with the kind of clarity I had only dreamed about before. My phone buzzed with messages, some from clients confirming meetings, others from staff sharing updates. Buried in the list was a text from my mother. We just want to talk. Please do not shut us out. I read it once, then set the phone down. Not every message requires an answer. At the office, the team greeted me with their usual warmth. Sophia handed me a folder of project updates, her eyes lingering on me for a moment. Everything okay? She asked softly. I smiled, genuine and unforced. Better than okay. We are exactly where we need to be. And throughout the day, I moved from meeting to meeting, sketching plans, reviewing contracts, guiding my staff. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm was something extraordinary. I was not weighed down by dread, not haunted by the thought of family interference. For once, the work was simply the work, and it felt pure. Later that afternoon, I stood at the large window overlooking the Hawthorne district. The skyline stretched wide, cranes and rooftops etched against the sky. My reflection stared back at me, but it was not the hunched figure I once knew. My shoulders were straight, my eyes steady, my posture grounded in strength. I thought of Melissa's final outburst in the cafe, her words still ringing in my ears. You get everything. What about me? The bitterness in her voice had revealed more than she intended. She had not wanted to help me. She had wanted what I had, without the years of sacrifice that built it. That was the difference. And it was a difference she would have to live with. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the city, I whispered the truth to myself, the the truth that had taken years to claim. I built this, and I do not owe it to anyone but myself. That night, when I locked the studio and walked out into the cool evening air, I felt no hesitation, no second guessing. My family might continue their attempts, their stories, their manipulations, but the line was set. I had spoken it, signed it, lived it. Boundaries were no longer an idea. They were a reality. For the first time in my life, standing firm did not feel like resistance. It felt like peace. A year later, the skyline of Portland stretched beyond my new office window, golden light spilling over rooftops and cranes. Carter and Company had expanded into something I once only dared to sketch in the margins of my notebooks. Our team had grown, our reputation had solidified, and the waiting list of clients reached months ahead. What had started as late nights and ramen noodles had become a thriving firm recognized for its integrity and innovation. My parents still called sometimes. My mother sent photos of her gardening projects, laced with subtle reminders of family ties. My father hinted at contacts he believed could help me. Melissa had finally settled into a marketing job, her messages less demanding now, though still tinged with envy. But the power had shifted. I was no longer their invisible child waiting for recognition. I answered when I chose to, on my terms. In the space their control once filled, something better had grown. My staff had become my chosen family. Every Friday morning, we gathered in the break room with bagels and coffee, sharing victories and challenges alike. The circle was equal, every voice heard. That culture of respect and trust became the foundation my parents never understood. The Carter & Co. Scholarship Fund flourished as well. Meeting the first two recipients, bright students who reminded me of myself years ago, was a moment I will never forget. Their gratitude, their determination, showed me that real legacy is not what you take from others. Real legacy is what you give to those who come after you. One evening I hosted a dinner in my apartment. No china, no forced small talk, no hidden agendas. Just pasta, laughter, clinking glasses, and stories that tumbled over each other. Sophia raised her glass and said, "To Rachel," who showed us that boundaries are not selfish. They are survival. And the applause was loud, the smiles genuine, the love unconditional. Later, I stepped onto the balcony, the city humming below, the air cool and steady. I thought about the girl I once was, the one who stood alone at her graduation, who wired money she did not have to a sister who never repaid it, who lived invisible in her own home. That girl thought she had to earn love by giving everything away. Tonight I whispered to her, "You were always enough. You just needed to protect your worth." That is the lesson I carried, the one I want anyone listening to remember. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are gates that protect what matters. You cannot heal people who refuse to respect you, and you cannot sacrifice yourself hoping they will one day change. True revenge is not loud or cruel. It is living with dignity, thriving on your own terms, and surrounding yourself with people who see your value without asking you to diminish yourself. As I turned back toward the laughter spilling from my kitchen, my phone buzzed with another message from my mother. I let it sit. Tonight, I did not need to read it. Tonight, I was with my real family, the one I had chosen, the one built on respect, loyalty, and truth. Success had not made me cold. It had made me visible. And in that visibility, I found peace. If this story stayed with you, remember this: you're allowed to draw lines, you are allowed to protect your worth, and you are allowed to walk away from those who only take. That is not cruelty. That is survival, and it is strength. And if you want more stories like this, stories of betrayal, boundaries, and justice, Subscribe to Heartless Revenge. Here we believe every story of pain can be turned into power, and every scar can carry a lesson worth sharing. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and join our community of survivors who turned family betrayal into true revenge.